All right, everybody, we are live. So, for those that you don't know, it's Joe D'Agostino Photo. Um, Instagram, Joe D'Agostino Photo. You can catch me on there and you can see all the work that I do. Here's our channel. But the main thing for today was going over some live edits. I often get asked a lot of times about my editing style, about my process. A lot of people know me for creating color grades and things of that nature, and just the way that I edit my photos. So I figured, again, we did one a while back, but I figured I'd do it again where I went over a live editing session and started from scratch, from the raw files all the way over to overlaying some of my color grades and how I tweak them. Craig, thank you for signing in. Again, thank you guys. Just say hello. Let me know if the audio is coming over good. Craig, can you hear the audio fine? I'm hoping that you can. Like I said, I'm using a new JLabs microphone here, so hopefully that the audio is pretty solid for you guys on your end. The other thing, like I said, I make a slew of color grades. I have everything from, I'm going to pull up, we'll go, in a minute, we're going to go right into Lightroom, and you guys will see my panel and the way I do things, but I have cinematic grade, Cinestill 800T, which is a super popular color grade that I use. And cool, thank you, Craig. Thanks for giving me the heads up on that audio. Cinestill 800T is probably my most popular, with a halation brush added to it, and a lot of people like that one. I have filmic presets, which are Fuji 400H and Portra, for the wedding crowd and the portrait crowd, and everybody likes that light and airy look. I have the new Joker grade. A lot of people maybe will laugh at that one, but for me, that movie Joker that came out, whether you like the movie or not, the color grading in that movie was beautifully executed. And I was really, since it came out and they released that movie, I've really been trying to nail down that color grade. And, you know, it's 4 or 5 primary colors that are really used for that grade. So I made the grade, and then I made like 4 or 5. Actually, I think there's 7 different looks in the Joker color grade to give you different looks on daytime and nighttime scenes, from green to blue. So we have those. I do Kodachrome, I do matte collection, I do monochrome, which is Kodak, Acros, and Tri-X 400. We have something called photojournalistic, meant to be kind of like photojournalistic sets, not quite Kodachrome, but something of that nature. Summer tones, which are really fun. A lot of people like those. And we have vintage Americana, which is kind of like a muted type of look. But the biggest one that I wanted to release right now is street tones. A lot of people have been asking me about my recent color grades that they can see on Instagram and on all the forums. For those of you that don't know, by now I shoot a ton of Fuji cameras, and I also shoot a lot of Leica for my personal projects, my personal work. I shoot Canon professionally, and I shoot some other systems as well, but Leica and Fujifilm kind of predominantly take up my entire catalog when it comes to personal and street photography, which is what most of these images are here today that we'll be going over. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But like I said, today, as you can see on the banner above, scrolling, that we're going to be going over the Joker color grade and street tones. These two have been amazing and give such a different dynamic and a different look to your photos. And it just adds another piece of character to your photo. So you can overlay the grade on top, and then I show you my process on how I adjust them a certain way, left or right. So again, if it's something that interests you, hang out. You may learn some tips. You may learn a few things in Lightroom that you've never seen before. So it's one of those things where sit back, take your time, and if you're trying to get a look into the way I grade my photos, this is going to be the way that I do it from start to finish. There are a ton of photographers on there. I don't pretend to know the right way to do everything. I just know the way that I do it. There's a lot of photographers that I see their work every day, and I'm in awe of some of their work. And I really wish that they would come on and do something like this on YouTube, where they would open their mind a little bit and allow us in so we can see how they create such beautiful work. But it doesn't seem like that's a popular thing to do. I've always been of the opinion that if I know something, I'm always willing to pass it on and teach it to somebody else. I'm not a big proponent of, hiding all the information that I know. I'm not in competition with anybody, so this is my way of giving back, so to speak, where I can say, hey, let me help you out with your photos. Most of these things, like I said, are going to be the color grades and then a little tweak here and there on some of the things that I do. So we're just going to jump in and we're going to do a screen capture right now of my Lightroom catalog. And as you can see, I have 13 photos that I picked for tonight. Hopefully we can get through all of them. Some of them I'll spend a little bit more time on than others. And really, I'll give you a few looks on each one and then we'll move on. But like I said, this is going to be predominantly what the video will be about tonight. And we'll go from there. I'm going to take myself off and just give you my full panel here. And let me take off the scrolling text here. So here's my Lightroom catalog. And we're going to start right in. As you can see, all the color grades that I have are right over here that I use. And these up here are the ones that I make. And like I said, I have sit still and things, but we're going to go right off the bat. We're going to go off the Joker tone on this scene. And real quick, I'm going to crop this out and just make it more of a 16 by 9. Maybe not exactly. I'm going to auto correct for the aspect, just because sometimes the lens gives more of a fisheye view and I want to correct that. So we can see this is just a normal city scene, but again, if we lay a grade over top of it, really extremely blue here. This one's a little warmer. This one here is going to be really strong, and you can just see as I scroll through them the differences in this this grade here. So really, it comes down to just picking one that works for you. This is really extremely dark and it looks pretty good, but I think I'm going to go with number 6 on this just to keep it a little bit warmer. Well, maybe not. Let me see. Again, I'm all up in the air on any of these, so really I can just start from scratch and to go. I'm going to go with number 2. So Joker grade number 2, and that laid the preset on right off the bat. Now I'm predominantly work in the basic panel. The basic panel is where I do a lot of my my work, and the first thing that I always do is I take down the contrast, and watch what happens to the photo once you take down your contrast. A lot of people want to push the contrast. Okay, those that know will bring it down, and I mean bring it down. Okay, I'm going to bring my highlights down. I always bring my highlights down. I'll bring my shadows up a little bit. I'll bring my whites up a little bit. And to bring back some of the contrast that you're seeing here, lost, what I'll do is I'll bring down my blacks a little bit. Okay? To right where I want the contrast to be. Okay? Then what I'll do is sometimes I'll bring up the vibrance if I want that color to pop a little bit more. And you could see if I take the vibrance out, this all kind of goes normal. It gets to just, there's not a strong concentration here. If I bring the vibrance up, you can see it brings those blues and greens back in. Then what I'll do is I'll work off this, and you're going to see this same theory repeated throughout all these color grades. I'll access my my tone curves here, and I'll take the darkest part right here, okay, and I'll hook that up. And what that does is that gives me a subtle matte look to the images, a certain haze, a certain glow in the shadows. you can get really silly with it and go all the way up, and you can see how extreme that actually happens. If I bring it right back down, you can see how, if I bring it the other way, everything gets all crazy. So let me just reset that back, and I'm going to bring it up just a little bit, a nice little hook on the end, just to give me that matte feeling in the shadow area. What I always do is sharpening. I'll sharpen 100%. Now, hold on. Don't get crazy. That's not where I leave it. Okay. I'll go into masking. I'll hit Alt or Command. Actually, I'm sorry, Alt or Option on a Mac while accessing that panel, and I'll slide it. And what you'll see is everything in white is actually going to be sharpened. Everything in black is not. So I'm really just getting the edges, okay? Noise reduction, if you want, you can add that. You can take it off. I think standard, it comes, this is like it's like on 18. Color noise, not really a big deal on this photo. We're at ISO 4000, which is still pretty high. 5.6, 250. If I could have shot this a little lower, this was with a Fuji X100F. But what I'll do now is I'll head into vignette. Now, a lot of people have they have different theories about vignette. Some people like vignette, some people don't want vignette at all. So it really comes down to your preference, but I feel like in street photography, especially when you're trying to create some kind of a cinematic tone or some kind of a darker scene, I really like to add vignette. So, but the way I add vignette is this. I'll take it down a little bit, like 27, 25, 27 negative. I'll take my midpoint, I'll slide my midpoint all the way over, okay? And then I'll take the feathering and I'll feather it all the way up to 100, and I'll take my highlights all the way up to 100, okay? I don't want it really to affect the sky that much. But then what I'll do is I'll go back up to my vignetting, the amount, and I'll take the amount back down to where I feel comfortable with where I want it to be. And for me, I like this at negative 33. It's going to vary from, you know, image to image. Now, am I happy with this? It's okay. It's pushing a little blue to me. So I'm going to go back into white balance, and I'm going to bring up the warmth a little bit on this. Let me see if I could bring it to, I'm waiting for everything to kind of take hold here. And I'm going to bring the warmth up around 6700 Kelvin, right around there. I can mess with my greens, my tint. Let me see what that does. I'm at plus 10. Let me see if I add some green to it, what it looks like. I like it a little bit. I do like the green added to it. I don't think I want to push it to the magenta. Magenta is going to really throw it off. Yeah, no, too warm. So I do like the green. So the green plays nicely with the blue and this Joker color tone. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm actually going to warm it up a little bit more now because the green added a little bit too much green, but I do like the tint. And again, like I told you before, and I say it on my presets on my website as well, is that these are a starting point. I don't make one-click presets. I don't think that anybody really can make a one-click preset. I think you always have to overlay a preset, and then you have to work with the file a little bit. And again, this takes a little longer right now because I'm explaining it to you, but I can literally do this in like 30 seconds and be happy with it. It doesn't take all that time. I'm going to bring up my shadows a little bit here. And again, that's where I'm going to leave that. So this is, let me see where we were. Oh, I had them all selected, that's why. This is where we were, if it shows it. Everything's running a little slow right now because I literally got like 15 programs open. I got OBS open, I got YouTube open, and I got Lightroom open, obviously. But let me show you right now. So if I put this on, I don't know if there's a delay or not, but here's the before. Here's the before, okay, and here's the color grade added. So big difference. Huge difference. Now, again, if I want to get a little bit crazier and I want to add a little bit more to this, I could always go into this radial tool up here. And this is a fun little trick. for you guys right now. And I'll just bring it to, let's just say temperature or whatever. I'll zero everything out, and I can add a color. Let's just say I want to add some kind of a warmth color here. And you could choose to do this or not. It's up to you. So I'm doing a select color here. You can see it. I'll exit out of that. So now anything that I do is going to be in that color. And what I'll do is I'll radial this in the middle, okay? And I'll just bring it right across like where the sun would be coming off of these buildings here. And the reason why I brought the radial so big too, people might be like, well, why would you bring it that big? Is because I'm feathering it out 100%. So really, if I took the feather off, you'll see it. That's what it would be like if I took the feather off. And that looks horrible. But I want to cover all this. But I just don't want it to be so harsh of a line. So I'll feather it all the way out, okay? And you can see that the feathering really allows it to pump up. Again, I can make it I can add saturation to this a little bit to make it a little bit warmer. Again, I apologize if everything is kind of slow right now, and that's just because, again, I'm running a lot of programs. I want to brighten this up a little bit, or do I want to darken it? Let me see. No, don't want to darken it. I'm going to bring it up a little bit because I want that to look like it's cutting right through the building. Maybe warm it up a little bit. And there we go. So, and again, people say, well, what did that really do for your image? Well, if I take this away, you'll see. Look how dark it was, okay? That's how dark it was. And this is with it added in. So it does make a big difference, okay? Again, that's not for every image, but that's just to manipulate it a little bit. Craig asks, I basically vignette all my photos, but one thing I don't do is bring down my contrast. I like the look, so I'm going to bring it down a bit. Yeah, I can tell you that when I really started diving into color grades and diving into the way I wanted to dial in my look, I was hesitant to mess with contrast a lot. But I can honestly tell you that after playing with contrast a bit and understanding how it works and how it affects your photos, it really does something different. Sorry, I'm just adjusting this camera. It really does something different to your photos when you can just swallow your pride a little bit and take down the contrast level. I think there's so many people nowadays that are so into slamming the contrast all the way to the right and just getting this contrasty photo where I feel like you create more of a mood, more of a depth to your photo, more of an atmosphere. That's the perfect word that I can use for this. Is it creates a different atmosphere when you take your contrast down. Try it. Maybe it's not for you, but if you try it, you may really dig it. So I'm going to move on. Hope you guys like that first one. Maybe we can get a little faster with these because I don't want to take all day. So let me get out of Joker grade and let me go into street tones on these. Street tones were just released, and like I said, I have there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So normal street tones with a bluish tint, blue saturated. So this is going to keep the blue, but it's going to pump up the saturation a bit. And you can see the difference right there. This is a boost. So this is kind of street tones, but with a boost in the highlights and just bringing up everything. This is just normal street tones with saturation added. And this is with like a teal push. And the teal is kind of in the shadows. But I'm going to run this, and this is a cool thing. I'm going to run this on boost. So right off the bat, boost will lower your contrast, bring up your shadows, and you can see it already kind of sets up your panel the way that I kind of dig my photos. Again, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But what I say is my pro tip on this one is to lower your exposure. Now, there's 2 ways to do that. You can lower your exposure of the image through, obviously, the exposure. But the other way to do it is, again, add that vignette. Now, again, I'm not pushing vignette. I feel like I'm, pushing like crack on you or something. We're talking about vignette. But it makes a difference, guys. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down this exposure, okay? Now you can see when I bring down the exposure, it also brings up the contrast a little bit, but not in a way where it crunches the colors. That's the problem. When you have contrast in your photos, too much contrast in your photos, it starts to add crunchiness to your files. It takes away from the atmosphere. So again, I lowered down the exposure, but I added contrast in by doing that. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit because I have a little trick that I'm going to do a different way. I like the color where it is, the vibrance where it is. I'm not going to crop any of this. I'm just going to kind of leave it where it is. I already have my sharpening added to this one. No big deal. And let me get into that vignette again. Push it down a little bit. Bring down the midpoint. Feather up. Feather the highlights. Bring down the vignette a little bit here. Okay. And so now that's perfect. You can see where it just falls off to black on this gentleman's jacket right into, you know, this lit up area right here. Now, there's another way you can do this thing too, is you can use your radial filter if you want, and you can put it right here in the middle. It's still bright where it was. You can kind of see that. And I kind of like this. I'm using it, you know, elongated vertically. You can see the mask right there. But I like this, but I want to make it a little warmer. So I'm going to bring it up, add some warmth to it. And you can see that this just slices this light really nice in the middle. If I take it off, you can see where it was. It's cold. It's uninteresting. I add it. And again, I don't always do this, but it just adds a little something. Do I take the contrast away? It's going to brighten it when I do that. It's kind of cool. It's not bad. If I put the contrast back in on this, it's going to make it really dark. But I don't want it to do that. I'm going to take it off a little bit because I want it to kind of be a little hazy. I'm not going to dehaze, I don't think. Dehaze is going to really wash it out. Yeah, no. But I will bump up the saturation just a little bit on this. And again, where am I at on this color tone? I'm at 32 degrees, 95% on this. So if you need numbers, that's where I'm at. If I oversaturate it, you're going to see just, you know, it kind of crushes this blue here. So I'm going to bring that back down. Right to here is good for me. And close that out. Bring up the overall vibrance of this image. Sure, I could do that. Adjust this. Bring up the blacks a little. Yeah, that's not bad. And again, it's all by feel, okay? Don't worry about interrupting me. If you guys have any questions, just fire them away. I know there's a few of you on right now watching, and I appreciate that. Just fire away the images, the questions if you got them. You can mess with your HSL if you want to adjust things, but I kind of like it where it is. The other thing you could do is you can start a new radial if you want to, okay? And this is fun to do too, is I'm going to put a new radial kind of where the old one is, okay? And I don't want to, you could do that, but it starts looking a little artificial near his jacket and whatnot. So I'm going to take this radial out and I'm going to make it 0. It's going to be no color at all, okay? But what I want to do with this now is I can take this radial and I can say, let's just say exposure, okay? Now, if I have it this way, okay, you'll notice that the middle gets slammed, okay? That's not what I want. I don't want to darken this. So what do? Invert. You'll see underneath the feather area down here, if you invert this, okay, everything outside of that is now dark. Now, obviously, that's extreme, but I was trying to show you that. Now, here's with nothing done to it. And here's if I just want to bring down a little bit on the outside, okay? It's the same thing as a vignette, but it's kind of a custom vignette where it's really, really dialing it in. And again, I can change this shape however I want. But if you guys don't know that little feature, this could be a really fun thing to play with. And again, you can take this vignette and you can move it wherever you want. I can move it over here if I just want this gentleman right here to be kind of the subject, which is kind of cool. That works too. I can move it over here, which doesn't work at all because obviously he's not that interesting. And I can keep it in the center, which to me, I feel like it plays nicely in the center because it's allowing the highlight to kind of just work off their shoulders, off this guy's face a little bit. Nice slice of light right here. And again, if you think that that doesn't do anything, you turn it off, you can see it'll bring everything up. That's with the radials off. This is with the radials back on. So it is a difference. And that's where I would end that one. That would be the end of that edit. Moving on. This one is kind of, I just threw this thing in last minute because I just threw a grade on it real quick and it kind of looked neat. I don't really care for the subject that much, and you know, the way it's the way I cropped it. I'm not going to go crazy on this image, but let me just straighten all that out, crop it. I don't think I'm going to do an aspect ratio on this. Let me just do auto, see what it does. It may straighten out. That's fine. I'll leave it like that. Street tones. So you get that muted warmth look right there. Blue saturated, boost. Boost looks kind of cool on this again. Saturated, teal, and regular teal. I'm going to go with, I would normally put this in boost, but I don't want to overdo boost for you guys, so I'm just going to do normal. I'm just going to do regular street tones on this. I'm going to bring down my saturation again on this. And you can see the difference here, right here, like in their face. If I have that saturation back up, it kind of crushes, it'll crush the tones in her face a little bit, or his face. I don't even know if this is a guy or a girl, but I'm going to bring it down a little bit because I want that smoothness. This is a high ISO as well, 3200. I'm going to bring my blacks in to kind of give me that contrast again, and maybe bring up my shadows a little bit. I kind of like where the temperature is. Let me see if I cool it down a little bit. I don't think it's going to be where I want it to go now. I start losing color in the buildings. I want the warmth in these buildings up here. I want that. So I pushed it up a little bit, 7100. Again, that's just subjective because your image is going to be different either way. Pump up my vibrance a little bit if I want. And again, let me head back down. Sharpening, sure, I'll sharpen it. I'll mask it. I don't need to mask it. I already know where it's going to be, so I'm going to put it there. And vignette, again, on this, same way, accessing the way I do it, and bring it right down. I want it to be a little bit stronger. And that would be that. Real quick and easy one on that one. This one's a little different. My daughter sitting on a couch in Florida. This was me testing out. This is actually using the Leica M10 with a 50mm Summicron. Just a really beautiful fade off on this. I believe I had a Pro Mist filter on as well. But again, I can go through street tones on this just to show you real quick what they look like overlaid. Really beautiful, you know, atmosphere. Again, that word atmosphere. Blue saturated. Boost, probably going to be too strong on this one. Yeah, a little bit strong. But again, if you bring it down the darkness, it'll look good. That's a little too colorful for me. And teal, but what teal would work out. But what I think I'm going to do on this, I'm going to go into Joker. And again, you could see these overlay pretty cool. That looks really cool. Little green, but again, if I'm trying to mimic the movie, this is a little bit warmer. And you'll notice in some of the scenes in that movie, there was that sense of warmth in some of those images. A little bit blue, a little bit lighter, a little bit warm and blue, and this one's going to be really warm, and this one's going to be really blue and dark. That kind of works a little bit, but I'm going to go into, let me see, I'm going to work off the original, Joker #1. Okay, let's just see how this looks here. And again, I'm going to crush this contrast. I'm going to crush it. Not so much, because again, the Pro Mist filter really kind of took a little bit away from this. But I'm going to bring it back with the blacks. I'm going to bring the blacks down a little bit. I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. There, perfect. I'm going to bring up these shadows just a little bit. I like the highlights where they are because I don't want it to. I want it to keep the skin, the texture of the skin. If I blow the highlights on this and bring them up, it's going to crush all this right here. It's a little too strong for me if I bring them up. If I bring them all the way down, it's going to, it kind of kills it a little bit. So right in the middle is probably a little less than middle is good for me. Let me see, if I mess with my whites, that's going to be a big issue. I'm going to leave them a little bit lower. Okay. Vibrance is fine. I'm not going to crop out anything on this. I'm not going to get crazy with it on you guys. Bring up my sharpening. I'll mask it again. Using that Alter Option key while I access the masking slider and just getting the sharpness on what I want to be sharp, which is right there is fine. Now, let me see what Vignette's going to do. I'm a little skeptical because she's, using the rule of thirds, she's a little bit over. So if I put a midpoint in, pump this up, it's not too bad. I don't really lose her too much. It's fine. But what I think I'm going to do is a selective vignette on this. And that could be fun again. So I'll go back in. It's on, I'll put it on exposure. Okay. And I'm going to invert this. And I'm going to bring everything down around it. But I'm going to keep it right on her face. Okay. Add on her face. That's a little too dark on everything around. And let me bring down the shadows on stuff going around her. Yeah, that kind of makes it cool. And let me see. Bring down the contrast on everything around her. That looks pretty good. Perfect, I think. Let me bring up the blacks around her. Too much. See, it mats everything a little bit too much when I do that. All right, right there's good. Okay. And maybe I'll bump up the warmth to add some of that warmth back in. Yeah. Nope. Way too much. The computer. The program here just hesitated on me a little bit. It's lagging a little bit, like I said, because I have a lot of stuff running right now, which is not the ideal way to edit. That's why editing on the Lightroom on an iPad is really nice too, because you kind of get that right off the as soon as you're doing it. Now you'll notice that this right now has no tone curve adjustment at all. A little bit on the high end, but I want to bring up my tail a little bit, get some of that matte feeling back in the darks right there, and that's where I'm going to keep that one. That's where that one's going to stay. All right, moving on. Another city scene. I should have brought up the other one, but I didn't. So we'll just go off of this one. It's not my favorite image, but I think we might be able to still do what I want to do with this. Corrected that and making sure all my lines are good. Let's see what these grades look like. Joker 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7's kind of neat, but I'm going to go with 6. It's warm. Still gives me the greens that I need. And I'm going to work off of 6 here. And the contrast is already crushed. The shadows are up a little bit. I'm going to bring up the exposure just a little bit. But I'm going to do something a little different here. This is a little bit on the magenta side. I'm going to bring it back down to the greens a little bit. Let's keep working this and see how it evens out. Right there is going to be cool. I know it looks a little bit different. It looks a little green. It looks a little, the colors are looking a little funky for you. I'm sure you're kind of like saying, I don't know if I get into all this. I don't know if that's where I want to be. Bear with me. I'll add that vignette. And again, guys, there's no great mystery to what I'm doing. You can actually see. I mean, I'm not going crazy on things. Vignette's okay. If I push it down too far, you're going to see it's going to start getting really weird around here. It's okay, but I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to bring the vignette in a little bit because I do want to add that, you know, pushing into the center. Let's do this now. Let's do something a little different. Let's do a gradient, and let's push the darks on the gradient down here. Let's ride them all the way up. Okay, let's ride those gradients up. We're making it a little darker. We can bring it way down. We can bring it back up a little bit. I want it to kind of crush that street a little bit. But I want it to crush the street, but I also wanted to add a color to it. So maybe I'll make it a little warm. Let me see. I may not like that. Again, I am going to make it a little warm, but I'm going to show you why in a minute. Okay? You have to understand light when you're looking at these things. I'm going to leave it a little bit warmer. Okay, I'm going to bring up the saturation a little bit on this. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that one away. I'm going to bring in a radial. Okay. And I'm going to make that radial again warm. And now I'm going to put that radial right here. It's inverted. I gotta change it. Hold on, let me set it. I'm gonna invert that. It was inverted before, so now I'm gonna take the invert out of it. I'm gonna bring this up like this. And you know what? I wanted to keep. This is good. Okay. And I'm gonna bring up the shadows in this a little bit. Because I want it to look like this sun is beaming in. I want it to look like it's cutting right through the city on the street here, and it's cutting right through. Bring up the exposure just a tad. Bring out my contrast. Let me see what that does. Yeah, I like that. That's fine. Okay. And let me see with let me see. Yeah, I'm going to bring up the saturation a little bit on this. Okay. Close it down. And again, let's see if I bring the whole image a little darker. It closes in on this vignette. But the reason why I kept this warm is because your sun, if it was cutting through like it is, you could see it's cutting through. It would overlay on this pavement a little bit, and it would make it a little warmer. I mean, if you really wanted to get crazy, you could actually use a brush here on this. And you could use a temp brush if you wanted to. And you know, that brush is kind of big, but you could follow this out if you wanted to, and it kind of warmed it up a little bit if you wanted to do that. I don't know that I want to do that, but yeah, no, see, that doesn't, no. Too artificial. So we'll just delete that idea. All right, that's where I would leave that one. That would be, again, that's a Joker color grade over top of a city scene with a gradient from the bottom up, which kind of, again, because if you had a vignette, it would kind of angle it. This kind of makes it a little more even. And then, in addition to that, a radial, which, you know, you can see right here. And if you don't trust that the radial did anything, if I take it away, you can see how dark it is in the center. If I add it, it just adds that much more depth to that image. Craig, thank you. I'm glad you're still watching. I don't know, a couple other people are on here, so that's good. I got a few more. I'll see if I could just push through these a little bit quicker for everybody so I don't take up a huge amount of time on this video. Thumbing through the grades, again, this is from a Leica. That looks pretty good. That looks cool. That one looks pretty cool. Again, if you're into the Joker grade, you know, it has that look, but it's certainly something that you either dig it or you don't dig it. Let's go back into street tones. Street tones look really good on this as well. Street tones, matte, Street tones blue, saturated, boost, saturated, little strong, little teal. Let's do teal. Okay, let me straighten this out. Let me see. This was with again a this was with a Summicron. Let me see what auto does. It may make things a little funky. No, it's not too bad. Again, not a big deal. I'm kind of just using this as an example. But let's bring this up, kind of like 16:9-ish. All right. Everything's overlaid right here. Real quick on this. Bring down the exposure. Okay. Crush that exposure. Bring it down. All I really care about is I want him highlighted. That's all I really care about. Bring up my sharpening and mask that sharpening out where I want it to be. Perfect. And vignette. Bring it back up. Vignette, vignette, highlight, feather. Bring it back up. You know, it's not bad, but I have this pouring in of light. Now, I mean, you could, but I feel like this is going to be too strong if I actually try to play around with this. And let's just say I want to add more of a, like a warmish look to this. I don't think this is what I'm going to want to do, but let's just play with this. Like it's a pouring in of sunshine coming in from the left here. I'm sorry, the right. And, you know, I don't know. It's not bad. It's okay. I don't know that I'm 100% happy with it. But again, this is just an example. Just playing with things. Oversaturating it is not going to be the answer. I'm going to bring that back down. And let me just leave it at that. And bring up my blacks. Maybe that's where I want to be. Yeah, I want to bring up my blacks a little bit. Add more of that atmosphere, that matte look, that, you know. And I'll just go right from there. And that would be that one. And again, you can actually bring the exposure down a little bit. I mean, I'm underexposing here by 1.4. So almost like a stop and a half under. And it still pulls it off. I mean, it's got a cool look to it. I kind of dig it. So let's see here. The city scene with these lights. This one looked really good with Cinestill. I'm just going to mark this. Let me even this out. Street tones. Street tones look pretty good on this one. Street tones. Blue. Blue saturated. Blue saturated looks kind of cool. Boost. Boost is probably going to be a little strong for that. Tones. Teal. But let's go into Joker, because this is a nighttime scene. It's got some interesting looks to it. Really punches the colors up here. Let's get this. Yeah, see. Now this looks good. I just want to get the right tone that I want for this. This could be too warm. This could be too dark. I mean, it works, but I'm going to go with 3. So 3 gives me all this. Oh no, my audio is no good. Can you not hear the audio? Daniel Featherstone. Tell me if you can hear the audio. Craig, if you're still here, can you hear the audio? Somebody said that the audio is screwed up. I hope that that's not the case. But let me move forward, and I'll obviously listen and see if there's any more. I'll just straighten that out. So this is Joker 4. Going back up. I'm going to take this and I'm going to take the contrast. I'm going to open that contrast back up a little bit. I'm going to bring my darks down a little bit. And my exposure, bring it down a little bit, because the main character in this one are these lights, honestly. This whole scene, this light, I think that's the main character of this image. Shadows, I could bring those up a little bit. That just adds a little bit more of color, more where you're seeing a little bit more material on the jacket and whatnot. All right, Craig, you can hear me. I'm sure audio is fine. I think it's, I don't know. I'm not going to bother with it. Hopefully everything's okay. All right, so where were we? Vibrance, do I mess with it? Bring it up a little bit. Yeah, you can bring it up a little bit. And let me see, vignette. I don't even think I need to vignette this one that much. Maybe a little bit just to add to some atmosphere on it. And yeah, that's going to be that one. And that's a cool grade right there. That looks good. That looks good at night. I think it does anyway. It adds this green up into the lights here. It really gives that Joker kind of look. The blue on the sidewalk here, and it really gives you that atmosphere. Very cinematic in its application. So we'll move on. This was in Florida. Again, we'll apply some Joker on this. Different look on all these. That's a little bit too green, blue. 6, and this is going to be really dark. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with 2 on this. This is from a Ricoh GR3. Take that out. The contrast, bring up the shadows a little bit. Bring down the exposure just a little bit. Bring up these whites. Let these whites pop a little bit. Bring down the blacks. Bring up some of the vibrance, because I want this to get a little bit warmer. This is a high ISO as well. This is 5,000 on the ISO, so sharpening is going to get a little crazy. But if I put that masking on it, not too bad. Add that vignette in the center. Bring up the feather. Bring up the highlights. That midpoint is down. I like where the vignette is here. I'm going to put a little hook on the tone on the curves panel here, and let me see if we can do something cool with a radial, and see if I can put this right where the headlights are. Keep forgetting to invert that. Let's invert that. Yeah, that kind of looks cool. It kind of works because it goes right through this here. Let me see if I saturate that a little bit more and actually bring up the warmth on this a little bit here. How does that work? Kind of works pretty cool. I like that. Contrast that. Yeah, that's cool. So again, you can see the difference. If I took that out, it gets really cold, but these lights here kind of play off of this. So if I add that back in, it kind of, boom, just pumps it up. Looks like it's coming through the door. Actually can bring this a little bit smaller because that's not important. It's what's really important is, let's bring it this way. Yeah, I like that better. That looks better. Yep. And that's that image. This next one here, let's see. I think I put a Joker on this one to begin with, and I kind of liked it. That's a little bit weird. This one might be a little... Actually, you know what? I did street tones on this one, I believe. Because these are really strong. Really strong on this. That one's not too bad. Oh, that's what I did. Joker 7 on this. So, yeah. I'll overlay Joker 7 on this. I'll bring up the warmth a little bit on this. I'm going to crush this one real easy. Real fast. Bring up the blacks a little bit. Nah, I'm going to leave them where they are. Bring up my saturation a little bit. I can do that. I'm going to bring this down even more. Bang. And that is good. Boom. Done. I'm leaving it right where it is. I can get into a radial if I want. You know, if you want to see that, we can, you know, I don't know that I would put one here. It's all right. You know, it's not, it adds a little bit. I feel like it's not really necessary. Take care of that. That's done. This one's kind of cool. Let's see. Let's just fix the aspect here. The correction. Auto. Set that up. Boom. Let's see. I can do. Can you do jokers on this? Yeah, you can. It's a little green. Pushes it a little strong. Daytime, you know, they work all right. They're not too bad, but I like, I really like street tones for daytime stuff. So blue saturated boost. I think boost is going to look good on this. Yeah, boost looks really good. Saturated's not bad either. And teal, teal's taking its sweet time to teal's a little strong. So let me just go boost on this. And actually, is that what I said? Saturated or boost? No, boost. Bring it down though. Bring that exposure down. Bring the warmth up a little bit. And what I'm going to do with this one is I'm actually going to bring this warm on the top. And that's a little too warm. So I'm going to bring this down here and take that out a little bit. It's a little too warm. All right, let's just leave it at that. I'm just playing around. And let me add a new one from underneath, and I'm going to push this one. I'm going to push this one in a different color. So this one's going to be more blue-green. And again, this is just playing with, you know, grades over top of, you know, with radiance over top of the grades to just add a little something different, okay? Make this one a little blue. Okay, it's like a teal and orange type of thing. Teal and orange is very popular. You guys know that. Bring up that saturation a little bit. And again, it's very subtle. You can see. If I take it off, put it on, it's a little bit. It's not huge. And let's bring in a vignette to add some mood. And bring that up right there. And let me bring the overall exposure down just a little bit. And then again, you know, I can kind of work this radial if I want to. I'll take the color out of it. I'll invert it. And I want to make everything around it dark, but I want everybody in the center right here to be a little lit up. So let's see how well this plays off. I may like it, I may not. Again, it's experimenting. I'm not like tied into one thing, you know. Yeah, it's okay. I'll leave it in there, whatever. I'll just bring the overall up a little bit so it keeps the edges dark, but it brings them up. So right there, done. That's fine. All right, let's see. Why do I feel like this one person that's on here is a troll? You always get them. That's the one talking about the audio. I don't think he's a real person. So let's just bring this one up. I don't know whether to keep that manhole cover or not. I feel like it kind of draws your attention away. That's just whatever. I'm here to talk about colors and not this. So Street tones, we can go in. I got 2 more after this. Move through these fast. Blue saturated, looks kind of cool. That's a little different. I feel like we could work with that. That looks good. Boost looks good on that, actually. Saturated and that. But let me go into Joker and see what Joker has to offer. Joker's kind of cool too because, again, it's that nighttime scene. This scene looks really good in Cinestill as well. It's actually on the cover of the presets. I may work with Joker on this one here. This is going to be dark. I'm going to go with Joker 4 or 2. Nope. 4 or 3. Okay, I like 3 is a little darker. Let's go with 3. Let's lower the contrast again. Lower the blacks a little bit. Bring up these shadows. Bring up the overall. And add a little saturation on this. Highlights are a little strong. I'm bringing those highlights down. See what that did right here? All this right here, if the highlights were left where they were, this all gets blown out. That's way too blown out. This is all way too blown out. If I bring down these highlights, you can see how much better it recovers them. So I like that. The overall, it looks better for the image. Now, this automatically, because of the way these leading lines, it forms an X right into the middle of the subject here. This automatically is going to work with a vignette. I'm not going to need to do anything different. So I'm going to just vignette this. And probably pretty strongly too. So it's a -20 on a number-wise, but let's see. Yeah, I'm going to bring that vignette pretty strong. And I can bring up the tail on my curves a little bit, add to that cinematic matte feeling. This looks good the way it is. It also would look good as a 16:9 maybe? Not that way. If I flip that, but I'm not going to get into it right now. Let's go back. Yeah, you can run it this way. I'm just going to leave it that way. But, I mean, if you really wanted it to look cinematic, then, you know, we can go 16:9, take out all that stuff on the inside there and make it look like a movie screen, and go 16:9 on this and just run that preset like that. That looks kind of cool. All right, this one, getting down to the end here. Joker 7. Let's see. 6. 6 is pretty colorful. 4. See, now this is already a predominantly blue scene, so I feel like the Joker, because that is a greenish blue grade, I feel like it's too strong. So let's go down to street tones here. Street tones is nice. Blue saturated is going to be too much. Boost looks pretty even and nice. Saturated, that's pretty good with all the colors. Teal is actually nice. Let's work with teal, and let's add a little warmth to this overall scene here, because it is Florida. Contrast is already low. I'm going to bring down the exposure just a little bit to protect some of this around here. A little bit too much on the bottom end of this image, so I'm going to bring this up, straighten this out a little bit. I'm a huge stickler for straight lines, but certain lenses just, they don't want to work with you. So that's corrected, and let's go back, and there's really not much to do here, guys. This is kind of just one of those scenes where it kind of just works the way it is. And bring up the sharpening. This is a Leica M10 file, and a vignette may work good on this. It seems like I vignetted everything tonight. I don't always do that, but there you go. Done. Call it a day. This is a Ricoh image coming up. Yeah, Ricoh, and this is very dark, 2500, 1/50th at 3.5. This is in Saratoga. I feel like a 16:9 on this will kind of make it look like a street scene. All of a sudden I don't know where the crop tool is, so figure that out. 16 by 9 will kind of make it look cinematic. Straighten this out. I'm not gonna mess with the lens profile or nothing. Joker looks kind of cool on this. That's dark, but 6 is going to be warm. That's not going to be conducive to this scene. That's not too bad. 3, everything's pushing a little warm on this, okay? And, you know, that's the lighting. But if we go to street tones kind of look pretty cool. And we can definitely work with this as well. That's a nice overall look. Let's see, a little saturation, way too much. It's getting a little crazy with these files, but they're workable. Boost is pretty good. I may like boost. That looks pretty cool, but I may color correct that. So let's just see, if you went to this and you actually eyedroppered this and did a white balance on, like, let's just say here, it's going to push everything really blue. But it looks kind of cool because now you can, after you've color corrected it, you can bring back the warmth a little bit by just hitting the slider a little bit, bringing down the contrast, bringing up those shadows a little bit, bringing down your blacks. It gets a little strong on the outside. Saturation isn't too bad. Tint is a little warm. I want it to be a little bit greener right there. And sharpening is fine. Vignette, I must have already added it to this profile. Vignette's fine. It's right where I want. I feel like I don't need all this over here. So I'm actually going to, I don't want to overall crop the whole image. So let me take off the lock here and just bring this over just a little bit. I just want it right there. Yeah, that's fine. Perfect. All right, guys. Let me go back into, oh, there I am. Okay. So again, as you guys can see, I went through a ton of images here for you guys. Well, not a ton. I went through 13 different looks, daytime, city scenes, some portraits, using the Joker tones. There's 7 of them, using street tones, which there are 6 street tones. These are the newest presets that are available on my site. Again, I'm not trying to push them. They're there if you guys want them. I make them cheap enough where it's like basically giving them away. But I do ask for a couple bucks only because they take a lot of time to create. But again, they're not one click. None of them ever are. I feel like anybody that tells you that their preset is a one-click fix is not really creating. Listen, lighting is subjective. It moves left and right. It's up and down. It's all over the place. Your colors are all over the place. Camera profiles are all over the place. One sensor is completely different than another sensor. So I feel like it's really, I feel like that's not the right way to go about things and say, you know, one click is going to be good for all cameras. All cameras are different. On these, I shot with Leica cameras, Fuji cameras, the newest sensors and the oldest sensors, Ricoh GR3. So you saw a different, you know, different color profiles from every camera and the way they handle files. But as you can see, you overlay the profile and you can work with things. It gives you a starting point. Yes, you could probably come up with it on your own, but you'd have to go through all the hue, saturation layers, the curve, the HSL sliders, the tone curves, the red, blue, and green tones. There's a whole involvement of it. So again, I don't make them expensive, but the main goal, whether you buy them or not, I don't even care. The main goal about it is for me to show you my process in Lightroom so you guys can see the way that I approach photos, the way that I edit them. And again, this is when I'm editing things for a strong kind of color grade. I also edit raw files very naturally too. I really dig that look. I'm really into it, but it isn't something that I do all the time. I do love color, so when I get to play with color, this is how I do it. Thank you so much for you guys that joined in on the live and your questions. If you have any other questions, fire them away now. If not, you can always hit me up on the DM, or you can message me privately. You can also catch me on Instagram at Joe D'Agostino Photo on Instagram, and follow me over there. But I appreciate it if you guys would give me a follow here and subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be apprised of anything else that comes up. Like you said, a couple videos went through this week, and now we did this one here. So thank you for your time, and I hope you found that helpful, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.